even something to judge. Like where do you fall in terms of like that spectrum? Like, do you have thoughts, or or is it kind of dependent on the artist? Like what does it look like for you in terms of your thought process, conversations?
It is different for every artist depending on what they want. But I do, without any kind of guidance, left to my own devices, I kind of feel like I don't kind of feel like it's. I think it's a thing that songs tend to have. I think Ian Shepherd again. I think he called it a song's loudness potential. He calls it, where you can get to a certain loudness before you start having to make serious compromises. And I think that's where I like to get things. Like that's where I'll go to, like a natural sort of, like, as loud as it'll go without it sounding rubbish. Which on a well balanced mix is usually more than loud enough. I think all the, it's a conversation that's been done to death, but I think that all of the misunderstanding of the -14 LUFS thing, it's been quite damaging, I think, because you kind of get like, sometimes you end up getting it from both sides. So if you send something that's quite quiet, then you may well get some kickback that it needs to be louder. But now with this -14 thing that's been just like chucked all over the internet for the last few years, now you sometimes get it the other way around, where I'll send something back and they'll go, well, I've put it into the loudness penalty website and it's saying that it's actually going to be turned down, so can I have a version that's 5 dB quieter? And it's like, it's not really how that works. So I don't have any hugely strong feelings on it either way. I think
it's like you just take the song where it needs to go.
Yeah,
and then you don't worry about it.
And I think most songs have quite a natural point where they'll sound really, really good. And I think at that point, if an artist requests that it be louder, then I can sort of go, of course, like we can make it louder, but just so you're aware, it will be at the expense of, of some,
fidelity.
Maybe the punch, or the punch in the drums, or like you may, because there's no point in talking to people other than people like me and you about like transients and stuff like that, because people just don't give a shit. They don't know what it means. So you always say, well, maybe the drums won't be quite as punchy and, things like that. But yeah, I find most of the time though that level is enough. Like it's easily going to sound loud enough. It's easily going to be
right.
Because
it's not so hard to get like -12, -10.
Oh no, not at all. No, no, certainly not on on a well balanced mix.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the -6s that are.
that is getting quite loud. But
that's what it seems.
I mean, it's funny. Do you listen to like streaming services with the normalization on or off?
I actually recently turned it off on Spotify on my computer. Like in my studio, because I found the fidelity increased when I turned it off.
Interesting.
In here, I don't remember what I have on my phone, but in the studio, there were some weird artifacts that would happen on Spotify that wouldn't happen in other places.
Okay.
And when I turned it off, those artifacts kind of went away.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I think people like us tend to not use it. Because it kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of doesn't quite feel right. I kind of want to listen to the thing how it was meant to be listened to. But
agreed. Again, I don't know if I heard these things before I upgraded to the Focals. Like I think on the Yamahas, I wasn't hearing this.
That's a good point, possibly. But yeah, I mean, according to all the statistics, that is a huge minority. Like it's like 90% of people don't turn.
Don't touch the default.
Yeah, exactly. And the default on, I think all the streaming services now, I think even Apple Music have just switched. Mm-hmm. It's always on by default. And like, what's the statistic? Is it 7? I think it was 17% of people turn it off. Something like that. So
it's not worth thinking about.
do you know what? It isn't. I think that's the main thing. It isn't,
Yeah.
because I don't have any control over what's going to happen to this master, like downstream. Like I can't tell people not to listen to, like, I can't tell two people on a bus not to listen to like one earbud each. Like, and I can't master stuff with that in mind, because that's just like totally crazy.
It's like that meme, right? It's like, like recorded in this, like, $10,000 microphone into this, $100,000 console into this, blah, 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 converted to an MP3, listen to in, $20 earbuds or whatever that meme was,
It's like, you just can't think about it. Like, I think I'm not like an audiophile in terms of how I don't really care how people listen to music either. I've got no snobbery towards like MP3s or streaming or or CDs or whatever. I don't care. It's but I know I listen to music as like a relatively normal like music fan, in that I've got like a mid-range kind of record player and like a pair of Sony speakers that came from a separate system that my dad had like 15 years ago, and I listen to the little Bose SoundLink in my kitchen, so I'm not on tiny little earbuds, but I'm not exactly on audiophile equipment either. And I just kind of think, well, if I can make things that sound good on those things, then I think we're in a good place. Like, it sounds great in my studio. It sounds great on my record deck. It sounds great in my kitchen. I think if it sounds shit on a single earbud on a bus, there's not much I can do about that.
Right. That's not your target audience. Nor should it be.
It's not so much about target audience. I just kind of like, everything's going to sound bad on that.
Right. Exactly.
And if you were to master something that sounded amazing on that, it would probably sound shit everywhere else.
Right. We're not making it so it sounds really like primarily good on the phone. Hopefully it sounds good on the phone, but that can't be the ideal source.
Exactly. And this technology changes all the time. And it's the same with the loudness target thing. I mean, it's -14 now. It's like tomorrow they could just go, it's -15 now. Or it's -20. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. And everyone who's mastered a song in the last like 3 years with that target in mind.
Right. It's now getting turned down.
Yeah, it's going to be pointless. It's just, yeah.
It's like building your business on Facebook instead of making a website, It's like,
yes.
It's like, let's just, be at the whims of all the algorithms and whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think you should only concern yourself with what you can control, I think.
Yeah. I love that. It's a great takeaway for the listeners also, of just make the music that sounds good to you, make the music that sounds good to the artists you're working with, and don't worry too much about these things that we can't control.
No, don't sweat the numbers.
Stop reading the news.
Exactly.
Awesome. Oh, well, that's a perfect transition point to kind of shift over to kind of like creative energies and just talking about how you stay jazzed to get into the studio every day. We all have days where we're super pumped and days where we're less inspired. How do you stay inspired? Any routines, anything you do that kind of keeps you in that good headspace?
Nothing formal, but I think so my wife is self-employed as well. She's a creative artist. She's amazing. And when we had our son, neither of us were interested in like her being like a housewife or me being a stay-at-home house husband, whatever. Like, we both would like, well, we need to keep doing our respective careers. So the way it currently works is that we've split our week in half. So we each get 3 days to work, and then we have one family day. Mm-hmm. And so it sometimes feels like a treat going to work, in all honesty. Like, it sometimes feels like, oh wow, this is so nice. I get to go and sit and listen to music, and and obviously listening to music is work, so yeah, I don't really need to is what I'm saying at the moment.
Yeah.
I I feel so lucky and feel so privileged that this is my job. Like, I know I've worked hard for it, and and all that sort of stuff. But a lot of people work hard for it, and I feel so unbelievably lucky and privileged that I can do this for a living.
Yeah,
that's motivation enough.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and I feel like also when you're working only 3 days a week, like it's like, okay, it's go time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I
totally.
during I relate to that. Like during lockdowns when my wife and I would split, watching our son versus working or whatever. It's like, okay, like I got like 3 hours now. Let's go. It just really puts a fire under your ass, and you're just like, let's get working now, because I might not have time in an hour, or who knows what's going to happen.
And obviously, I mean, that's the ideal. It often is not that cut and dry. Like I do end up working into the evening sometimes, and we sometimes swap days if I'm busier or she's busier or something. Like, it is fluid, right. But that's generally how it works, and it just means that neither of us kind of lose sight of who we actually are just because we've become parents. And
it's important. It's important to keep your sense of self.
Yeah, definitely.
As a dad or a parent, like
totally. Yeah, and just to keep things as equal as possible as well. Like it's important to us.
Yeah. Same here. Totally. I'm with you. Amazing. And well, dude, this has been really, really fun. Like, we've chatted about so many things and just been a great schmooze, and I'm happy to have met you.
Yeah, you too, Ben.
So just as we kind of draw the interview to a close, I ask everybody this question. I'm debating if I should just kind of rebrand it, because I've been asking it the same way for so long. But so you may already know what I'm about to ask you. But like, looking back on your journey, was there something that you did or didn't do that you'd want to impart on your earlier self and be like, Steven, keep at that. It's going to get you where you want to go. Or maybe it's, Steven, stop doing it. It's holding you back. Or maybe it's like, hey, audience listener who's maybe more at the beginning of your journey, like, this is what I would say is a sound piece of advice to do or not do based on my history. Like, what would be that thing?
Don't be afraid to reach out to people because for worrying that they think that you're a dick. If that makes any sense at all. It's, for so long I was kind of almost shy about what I was doing, and I felt really kind of like it's it's all right for them because they know so and so. And the biggest revelation of just like, oh yeah, they know them because they've reached out to them and they've become their mate. Like, that's how you know people. And to sort of, that was to have that revelation of just like, oh yeah, you can just reach out to people. You can just speak to people and they won't think you're an idiot. Is huge. Or it was huge for me anyway. Like, yeah. In one respect, I wish I'd have known it a lot younger. And in another respect, I'm just really glad that I learned it in time to actually do something with it.
Yeah. Well, it's never too late, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I totally resonate with that as somebody who, just because of this podcast, I've been able to meet so many people that I never would have thought I would have met. And a lot of those meetings happened through other people, but like, it started with a cold outreach,
Yeah.
And like, you never know, if you know how to do the cold outreach, like, it's not offensive. People, worst case scenario, they say like, I can't do this right now. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like you said. And it's true. I'll even take it back. Like, the one time I went to a trade show, I went to one AES in New York. Uh-huh. It was around my cousin's wedding. And I was just like, oh, there are other people that are kind of like me and they're just totally normal. And like, I didn't know that when I was just in my man cave working away all by myself. And then I realized, oh, there's other people out there. And if I not gone to that AES, I might not be doing this podcast, because that kind of just made me realize that like, oh, I'm not alone. And like, there's other people, and that feels good to have that shared, feeling of like camaraderie, or we're in this together. And
yeah. Well, I mean, going back to Weird Jungle, I mean, I've got colleagues now.
Yeah.
Like, how amazing is that? Like even though I sit by myself, like